much as episode 1 was like a foundational episode, you get to know the characters, you get to know the stakes, the setting, all that. I love episode 1, but episode 2 is like what really got me excited and kind of, okay, this is what the show could be, and I loved episode 2. What about you?
Absolutely. I mean, the places it took us, I think they were really trying to show off what the show has to offer kind of here. It did, like you were saying, we did all of the exposition, laying the groundwork in the last episode, and that was super enjoyable. I loved getting to know the characters, getting to know their home. But now this was like the first actual installment of their journey, of their adventure. And I think a more accurate depiction of what the average episode of this show is going to feel like, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just a blast front to back.
It was so fun. I mean, I have a new obsession that I'm going to talk about in this breakdown. There's some little clues to other properties and other things, kind of maybe outside the Star Wars universe. Maybe. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, what I really want to focus on towards the end of the episode when we get to that scene is what's going on with Jude. Who is he? Is he an actual Force user? Does that make him a former Jedi? Or is he someone who's like, he's a pirate who's trained himself to use the Force and stuff like that? I think we can have a really, really fun discussion
for sure
towards the tail end of this breakdown when we get to that scene about that, because those are a lot of the interesting questions that I'm still thinking about and I can't wait to get an answer on for episode 3. Now, we've only seen episode 1 and 2. I know some friends of ours got to see episodes 1 through 3. We haven't seen episode 3, so we're in the same boat as everybody else in terms of speculation. We have really no idea what's going on. We just kind of know, okay, I think this is where it's going, and I can't wait to talk about that with you and then also hear from our listeners on what they think is going on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be a fantastic episode. I'm excited to record while it's not super early in the morning. Hopefully any rough patches we had in the first episode this morning we'll smooth out in this one. But you are listening to Children of the Watch. I'm Mac Lacey.
And I'm Alex Maxwell, and today we are breaking down the second episode of Skeleton Crew. If you're new to our podcast, we break down every single episode of Star Wars television, scene by scene, to analyze the story, find comfort Easter eggs, and explain how it all connects to the larger Star Wars universe. And if you missed out, we've already done a full scene-by-scene breakdown of episode 1. Check that out in your feeds. We're going to be doing this for every single episode of Skeleton Crew, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And the fun doesn't stop after Skeleton Crew, because then we're going to get ready for Andor. There's some things that we actually need to talk about related to Andor in this episode. So we're going to be doing another scene-by-scene breakdown of Andor Season 1 leading into Season 2. So there's so much fun, Mac, coming.
Yes. Absolutely. The next 6 months are going to be just a fantastic time to be a Star Wars fan. I really do have that like 2015 feeling.
I do too.
There's so much that I'm looking forward to. There's so much I'm currently just consuming and enjoying, and I don't know. It's a good time. It's a good time. We definitely want to hear all of your experiences with Skeleton Crew so far. We want to hear what you think about the show, any of your thoughts, your predictions. A little bit later, later on, we're going to be doing a voicemail hotline. We're calling it our Skelephone for Skeleton Crew. I love it. You can call into that at 205-259-6675. Just leave us, any theories, any predictions you have. Give us your big reactions, like, what you were feeling as you were watching it. Keep it under 3 minutes. And if you mess up, you can hang up and, call again. We'll use your best take and all that kind of stuff. But we love to hear your voices and your perspectives, because that just makes it a more well-rounded, more interesting conversation for us. So, call in 205-259-6675.
Also, you can have fun with us over on social media. You can follow us at COT Watch on X, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Instagram. We're back on YouTube if you want to see our faces on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube at Children of the Watch over on YouTube. In fact, if you are primarily an audio listener, it would go a long way if you just kind of hit play on YouTube for us for a little bit. That would be a big, big help. We would love that. And then, of course, we would love for you to leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you are listening to us on. That would go such a long way. And share the show with friends, because word of mouth is the best way to grow a podcast. And this is the perfect show to get someone into Star Wars. I think a lot of people will come to Star Wars through this show, and we want them in on the fun too. So share the podcast with them and let them be a part of the fun that we're having. But if you're also watching maybe other stuff like Dune Prophecy over on HBO Max, check out our friends Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. They are covering it scene by scene, just like we do for Star Wars. So check them out if you're watching that show. Mac, I think we should get into episode 2. What do you think?
I think we should leave no further ado.
So this episode is titled Way, Way Out Past the Barrier. And again, I love these episode titles. They're really kind of casual and fun.
Yeah, it's a refreshing change of pace from like a lot of the Mandalorian and the Acolytes naming conventions. They were always very short, the something, or the Acolyte had the dual separated by a slash titles kind of deal. So yeah, this is a refreshing change of pace from that. It's very descriptive while not giving anything away you don't already know. It's good.
And it's way different than like something like Obi-Wan Kenobi that didn't have any episode titles at all.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I think it matches the tone of the show pretty well.
Absolutely.
The director for this episode was David Lowery. You might know him best from The Green Knight, if you've seen that movie, or he actually recently did a Peter Pan movie starring Jude Law as Captain Hook on Disney+. So there's some familiarity there with Jude Law. And this is the episode description. It says, a surprising first stop marks the beginning of an unexpected journey. I feel like that pretty much summarizes what this episode's all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into the breakdown. After a short recap from the first episode, episode 2 begins right where we left off as the Onyx Cinder, that's the name of the ship, hurtles through hyperspace. And Wim and the rest of the crew are screaming their heads off. Alarms are blaring. It's chaos, Mac. Absolute chaos.
Imagine if you had never seen a star before, and then you had to do a hyperspace jump. Could you imagine just talk about getting thrown in, head first? It's crazy.
It'd be quite the moment. I think I would be doing the same thing. I'd be freaking out too. Yeah. And they're trying to turn it off. And Mac, I wasn't super clear if they turned like hyperspace off or the ship just exited hyperspace on its own. It kind of tumbles out. It's hard to tell.
It has a weird, almost spectral effect following it, which leads me to believe it's kind of like an emergency exit from hyperspace. Okay. You can see the residual the hyperspace fabric still folded around it, for lack of a better term. It's not real physics, so there's not real terms to talk about it.
Wait, what? It's not real?
Alex, I got... Oh, buddy.
Have you ever seen the movie Galaxy Quest?
Yes.
Yeah. Don't you wish that would happen to you in Star Wars? Like Han Solo lands in your backyard and says, come on, we got to go. And he's shooting a blaster at stormtroopers all of a sudden chasing you. Yeah, would you leave and never come back? Would you do that?
Obviously.
Okay.
Obviously. What are you talking about? Yeah, of course. But yeah, no, I think it kind of they force exited hyperspace, and that's why it looks the way it does as it's tumbling out. I don't know, but it's unclear.
We've kind of seen that before, like in Star Wars Rebels and stuff, where they exit hyperspace unabruptly, and I don't know. So the alarm stopped blaring, but reality begins to set in for the crew as they realize how far away from home they could be. Neil says they need to turn around and go home immediately, and no one objects. Wim sits down to start with the controls, but Fern threatens him not to touch another button. And it's so funny because like he's the reason that this has all happened is because he could not stop his curiosity from touching the button. And it seems like a problem Wim has is like he just, impulse. He doesn't really think things through. He just does things, and it's causing all this chaos for everybody else.
Right. Yeah, but like with that, with that sense of curiosity and exploration, that's how you get innovation. So
that's true.
I'm excited to see kind of how his personality maybe develops, maybe how he matures. I mean, this is a coming of age story, right? That's even in the Disney Plus descriptors. So I'm excited to see how maybe he kind of comes into his own and how those traits start being a strength rather than a weakness.
Yeah. Right. To channel that. Right. Yeah. Like direct it towards something. Yeah. Before she can continue on with her threat, there's a loud clang and almost robotic scream that echoes from behind. They all slowly turn towards the steam-filled hallway that is lit in an ominous shade of red by the blinking emergency lights. And then a small single white light emerges from the mist, and they wonder what it is. The light lurches forward, and it's SM-33. And he says, "Captain, intruders in the cockpit. What should I do with these gremlins? Snap their necks, throw them out of the airlock." And he hobbles on a peg leg towards them with his Bristol accent. And I love that because, Blackbeard was said to have a Bristol accent along with many pirates. And so it kind of matches that. I like that.
It's kind of, that accent has become just like pirate talk almost to some degree. I love the other reference to an 80s property, Gremlins, in this. I think that was probably intentional. I love SM-33. Like, this is our first real good look at him. He's a lot bulkier than I expected him to seem, just from like the short, shots from the trailers and stuff like that. But I think that works for the idea of this like older, grizzled, like lumbering bear of a droid. I like that,
And I love the way he moves. Like, he looks old. He feels old. Like I don't know if he's an ancient droid or not, but he feels like he is.
Yeah.
And he's really creaky. Kind of like, like you would imagine a first mate type pirate, right? Like, that's kind of the feel that he gives. And I love it. Like, we were theorizing before the show began, could he be the ultimate bad guy? And I think that's still on the table, but I'm kind of backing away from that for right now and just kind of seeing how that plays out, because I think he is kind of that droid companion, almost K2 like protector of the crew.
Yeah, but just like with a programmed pirate personality, which is a really interesting, because like he's still following protocols and he's like governed by all these rules just like any other droid would be, but it's rules that a pirate set in place. He's got all this knowledge of like how you can inherit the captainship of a ship.
Right.
Captainship of a ship is not a great way to put that, but you see what I'm saying. Yeah, so like it's just a really interesting take on a droid that we haven't seen before.
It's fun. It's just fun.
Yeah, and it's something, like he's literally out of time, it seems.
Yes.
So like we don't know how old the ship is. We have to kind of rethink our chronology from what we were predicting, like when we were just going off the trailers. We had kind of thought the ship was going to be from the Old Republic, and that's where the Old Republic credits and stuff came from. But we know now from this episode, not the case.
Right.
We'll get into how that all works later. But so we don't know how old SM-33 is.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell because, you think back to the first episode, it crashed upside down. They're pirates, so maybe they were just pirates looking for the mythology of At-Attin, and they just happened to find it.
Like, it looks like they found it.
No one ever really got off. Maybe like there's a hint that there was a betrayal on the ship or something, so maybe something happened or they did find a treasure and hid it. Who knows what happened, but it doesn't feel maybe quite as old as what we were thinking before the show started.
Yeah. I'm starting to think the barrier could be a one-way trip.
Yeah.
because like if you're trying to keep this treasure planet guarded, you know, you would want to be able to leave after you've put everything in place, but you don't necessarily want anything getting in. So maybe the barrier because like the kids had no problem passing through the barrier,
right?
So like what is it actually guarding? You know, how is that actually?
That's interesting.
We just don't know much about the barrier at this point.
Yeah, that is a good point. Of like, okay, is it just to shield people from the outside in terms of like you can't see it? Or is it like a physical barrier that doesn't allow you to leave? But obviously they did. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. And like think back to the first episode or even this episode, Wim's dad mentions the barrier. Like he knows what the barrier is. The kids know what the barrier is. Right. So it's like not a secret to them, but it might be something where it's just like it's created so no one can find them. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. But back to SM-33, he can't find the captain, so he begins dragging Wim with him, and Fern has an idea. She tells him that his captain is dead, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, don't set this guy off. And SM-33 goes on to say, according to my program, there can be no ship without a captain, and the ship, she's still here, so Captain. He starts calling out like he is desperate to find this captain. And I'm really interested to know like who was the original captain of this ship and like what the deal was. Yeah. That would be interesting to find out. Do you think we will?
I think it's possible that like maybe some of SM-33's like the memory banks that are kind of corrupted right now could become accessible later on, and we could get some of that story that way. But it's also possible maybe we just get like a pirate series in comic form or something, and we get this that way. I'd be good with either one.
There's rumors that Lucasfilm is working on a new animated series called Star Wars Pirates, and that would be a great avenue to explore that, whether it be like the original crew of the Onyx Cinder or a continuation of Skeleton Crew just through animated form. I think would be a really, really cool way to do that. So maybe we will get more, but I don't know. So he goes off in search for missing captain of the ship, and while Neil asks Wim what they should do, but Fern points out that they shouldn't ask Wim because it's his fault anyway, and everyone kind of agrees, yeah, it's your fault, and he's starting to feel real bad about it. Not necessarily that they're on the adventure, just that people are blaming him for something, and I can relate to that. Fern has another idea, and so she asks for the droid's name, and then she goes on to say that she killed his captain, and Neil audibly gasps. And the setup from the first episode about how easily she can lie, it pays off right here. This is where the good writing comes in. You're kind of starting to see, okay, you set that up last episode. Here's where it pays off. This is why she does that.
Because if that wasn't the case, this would seem like a really bold move to just assume you can pull off, right? But no, she's practiced this skill.
Exactly. She does it all the time. Sometimes she just lies for fun to see if you'll believe it, right?
And I don't know that that's not what she's doing here. You know, like obviously there's some real stakes and stuff, but I still think she's kind of like, let's see how far I can push this.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. He goes off in search for, she says that she's the captain, and she says that makes her the new captain, but I'm guessing like some sort of unspoken pirate code, like, kind of like you get in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like if she killed the captain, that makes her the captain. It's kind of almost the Unclaimsies thing from the last episode being played out in a very real way right here.
Yeah, it seems like pirate code in Star Wars kind of operates on the Claimsies principle, you know?
It does.
It's not unlike Mandalorian society, though, in which you can challenge the Mandalore to single combat at any time and become the new Mandalore, Yeah. So
that's a good point.
Precedent.
You're right. SM-33 seems to process that for a moment before asking what to do with the stowaways and acknowledges her as captain. This, of course, upsets Wim because he wanted to be captain. And SM-33 goes on to say he can battle her to the death for the right to be captain, but Wim decides he's good. He's not going to do that. Fern then tells SM-33 to show her how to fly her ship. And then we get a really quick cut to SM-33 sitting in the pilot's chair, going over all the controls really fast. I love how fast it is.
Yeah.
And like how no one could obviously keep up with that, but he's just showing everything he possibly can.
Well, I think he assumes these are like seasoned, ship hands, right? Like they've been on star cruisers for a long time. Because he's not, when he sees Fern, he's not like, oh, you're a child. He says, oh, you seem ill fit for combat. Like, he's not even registering the fact that they're children,
Right.
Because I don't think pirates probably had any need to program what children were.
Exactly. Probably not going to be around.
Yeah.
He just assumes they're pirates too. And we actually get confirmation of that later in the episode because he's like so shocked of like, what do you mean we're not pirates? We're pirates. So Wim sees another button and asks what it does, and everyone, SM-33 included, yells for him not to touch it. I think that's going to become like a running gag throughout the show of like Wim just wanting to go towards the thing that he shouldn't go towards and do it, and everyone's like, please don't.
Like a moth to the flame.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And SM-33 says, that's the emergency hull demolition sequencer, you fool.
Yeah.
Do you think that will come in later?
Yeah. On the Discord, the companion 188 said it's Chekhov's gun and then slashed through gun, emergency hull demolition sequencer. So I think that's a great way to put that. Like they pointed it out that it exists for a reason. So now in the back of our minds, that's always included in the stakes.
It's almost kind of like IG-11's, like his need in the first episode of The Mandalorian to just explode when he's surrounded, like he's gonna just destroy himself, and then that comes in later in the finale. Maybe something similar to that. Wim says he won't touch it, and then he sits down at the controls asking to fly the ship, and everyone again yells at him, no, stop, just go away. And then Fern asks SM to fly it, but he says that they need to get the critical systems fixed first, and he knows just the starport to go to. Fern doesn't want to go there, though. She wants to go straight home, so SM-33 turns the ship around and asks, okay, where's home? Where might home be? And she says back where they came from, At-Attin. But that doesn't seem to compute with SM-33, and KB suggests to him to search his memory bank's last location, and he's searching, but he's clearly damaged.
Yeah.
And while he's searching, a little six-eyed rat pops out of his eye hole on the control panel, and I love the addition of this rat. I think that was a really clever idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I mean, because he's not like gonna be an actual character or anything, but we've seen that he has some recurring use.
I think he's gonna become part of the crew. Like he's part of he's part of the skeleton crew here.
I mean, I imagine it like a parrot on a pirate's shoulder.
That's like exactly it. Yes,
that level of being in the crew. Like you're not like a sentient character, but you're there.
Yeah, I love it. It then jumps on to Neil after it pops out onto the control panel. It jumps on to Neil, who's terrified of it.
Yeah.
And then Fern again demands to be taken to At-Attin, and SM-33 asks if she means Atollon. Now, we've heard that planet before, Atollon. We know that planet. We've seen it in Star Wars Rebels. Mm-hmm. It was the home to a rebel base and the creature known as the Bendu. Thrawn actually attacked it in the season 3 finale. We covered that last summer in our lead up to Ahsoka. So we've been to that planet before. And the fact that he knows that planet also might be a little bit of a clue in terms of where this, like when those pirates got there. You know what I mean? It might have been during the dark ages or the dark times, like that period between episode 3 and 4, right before episode 4. I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's also interesting that just like SM-33 may have some knowledge of the Bendu. Like, what does that mean?
That's where the Bendu's from. It's just, and if you're not familiar with what the Bendu is, it's like this huge moose-like creature who is a force, like in the middle of the force between light and dark, and he guides the main characters for a little moment. He's voiced by one of the former Doctor Who, one of the former doctors, Tom Baker. Really cool character, but strange, very strange,
and like shows up like 3 times.
Yeah,
and that's it. We never heard from him again.
And he's on no one's side. He's in the middle. Yeah. And then SM-33 goes on to ask about another planet. He asked about Al-Alcor, and that is not a planet we're familiar with. I think that's a new planet he just kind of throws out there. But then he says Aldhani, which we know that planet too. It's from Andor. It's the planet from episodes 4 through 6 where they do the heist, where Andor's on for those episodes. That's the planet, Aldhani. So kind of cool little shout out to Andor there.
Yeah, I mean, this is Star Wars TV. While Andor's not in the Mandoverse like Skeleton Crew is, it's not happening in the same time period. It's a good little nod. And, these shows are all Star Wars, so they're certainly acknowledging that each other are happening.
I love that. I love that. Those are fun little Easter eggs. So Fern gets frustrated and says At-Attin again, with Wim saying it at the same time. And SM-33 points out the countless stars and asks which one is At-Attin because he has no idea.
Yeah.
It's Neil who says that they're all thinking, that they're lost. They're really, really lost. And I think that realization starts to set in for all of them. They're starting to get a little freaked out here. Kind of that first moment, like when you maybe lost your parents in the grocery store, you're like, oh, dang, I'm by myself here. Yeah, I guess I need to go find an adult. So Wim gets frustrated because he thinks they're all blaming him. And after that, he runs out of the cockpit. And SM-33 asks, shall I throw him out of the airlock for insolence, Captain? And I just love that.
Yeah. I mean, like this was a regular occurrence that happened previously under the previous captain.
Yeah. I love that.
It's good.
And I love, like, how cool would it be to have like a droid who will do stuff like that for you?
Yeah. Like super loyal to you, but doesn't care if anyone else lives or dies.
No. So Fern
like
tells,
Chopper.
Oh my gosh. If SM-33 and Chopper ever got together, what war crimes would be committed?
It'd be bad. I don't think they could ever work together, though, mostly on account of Chopper.
Chopper doesn't trust any droids.
No, he's kind of a solo artist,
He is. That would be like 2 serial killers working together. You don't see it happen, right? Like
no.
Fern then tells them to go to the starport that he mentioned before because maybe someone there can give them directions. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then the rat climbs back into SM-33's head as the ship jumps back into hyperspace, and we cut to title credits, Skeleton Crew. Great, another little opening sequence here, and I love this show. Yeah, I love everything about it, and it is like reinvigorated Star Wars. Like, I honestly, like, there's been so much positivity on social media about this. Like, it brings warm feelings to my heart because it's not, I don't know if you know this or not, it's not always like that on social media.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Do tell. Yeah.
So it's nice to see. It's nice to, because I want everyone to love Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, even if you don't, I want everybody to understand that maybe it's just not for you.
Exactly.
But it seems like, I've loved seeing all the positive reception, and I agree with you. It's just given me like a new energy, a new I've practically like redone our entire brand identity like in 2 days.
in a day.
Like I'm pumped,
Honestly, I feel like that was the best way to do it. Like a slow build up to it. Nah, let's just rip the Band-Aid. All of a sudden, let's come up with a new podcast cover, new intro music, YouTube intro. Let's do it all in 24 hours. And it's actually been really fun to do it that way.
Yeah. Shout out Derry, our graphic designer, too, for his help. So
yeah, he's awesome. So back to the episode. We open back up to night as a frog jumps into a puddle, and I bet Grogu would eat that frog if he could.
Oh, absolutely.
Could you imagine him and Neil meeting?
It'd be amazing.
World
like,
peace achieved.
I think so. Super wild tangent.
Yeah, go
this
ahead.
is from last episode and just something that with everything else we had to talk about, I did not mention. But I'm obsessed with the fuzzy slee stack looking aliens with the ears.
The one that like Neil has a crush on, like that species.
Yeah, there's two of them in the class.
Yeah,
like one's green, one's
brownish,
like brown. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, they're pretty cool, huh?
Do we know what the species is?
I don't think so. I don't think we've ever seen that.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
Another thing that occurred to me while in between recording is the great work. Going back to that for a second, and we're about to talk about it with these safety droids and Wendell.
Yeah,
but it kind of sounds like the High Republic. There was a time of great works with an S, where like the Starlight Beacon was created and all these great things were happening across the High Republic era. And I could be totally making this up, and I don't want to pause the show to go look this up. So check me if I'm wrong. But I think originally they wanted to they pitched the idea during the High Republic, and they figured actually it would be better during this New Republic era because there's going to be more danger. If it's during the High Republic era, you're going to run into a Jedi because they're everywhere. Right. With this one, there's Luke, and that's it, right? Yep. And so you're not likely to run into him, and so I wonder if there is maybe a connection to the High Republic era since it was originally pitched kind of in that time period.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to get, we'll have to talk about the republics and which republic and all that kind of stuff later on when we start talking about credits.
Oh yeah. And don't let me forget, Star Wars Explained, our friends Alex and Molly, they translated the Arabesh from the stories. So when that comes back up, remind me and I'll read you all of the translations that Alex from Star Wars Explained translated, and we might be able to pick up some clues from that. So don't let me forget that because that's kind of important. So let's get back to the episode real quick, though. So a frog jumps into the puddle at night. Two safety droids are patrolling the woods on At-Attin, and they ask if they scanned anything abnormal, but they haven't. They kind of sound like Daleks to me from Doctor Who, the way that they talk. Yep. They're looking for the source of the seismic disturbance and then find Wendell running through the woods. He's caught in the restricted area, and he tries to tell the droids about what happened, and the droids question about the starship, and they say impossible. Starships are not permitted to enter or leave but Wendell screams that they could be out past the barrier by now, which is a serious violation. And then the safety droid starts to mention the supervisor, which I guess is like the president of At-Attin or the community that's there on At-Attin. But Wendell interrupts again before we can get more information about this supervisor, and they take him as we wipe back to the ship. So again, it's kind of the Giver thing going on, 1984, as you have mentioned, kind of also M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, but it seems like the adults are maybe a little more aware than the kids of maybe what's going on.
Maybe.
And maybe they're just fine with it.
I'm going to take a big old swing on the wild speculation.
That's what we do, baby.
I think the supervisor is going to be like a supercomputer or something. Not like an actual person in an office like we would think.
It's not going to be Christopher Lloyd from season 3 of The Mandalorian, which kind of a similar episode and situation when you think about it.
Yeah, kind of. But yeah, no, I think like maybe there's a computer like Fallout Vault style who's made all the like it's been tasked with the preservation of this planet, like because of all the treasure on it or whatever. And so it has come up with all of these, like the barrier and the way of life and all that kind of stuff. So all these people, we're following the supervisor, but they maybe assume it's like a person.
I like that.
Yeah, who knows? But that's just a thought I had.
No, that's a good idea because then it's kind of like War Games a little bit. Another 1980s film.
Exactly.
There's a little bit of that in there too, and so I could totally see that being the case.
Yeah. I
Good
love
call.
War Games also.
It's fun.
Because, the only way to win is not to play.
Yeah. Really, really fun. Good idea there. Remind us to take that to Resistance Broadcast when we're on Galactic Goonies with them next week. That's a good one.
Yeah.
They like our theories because we're friends. Neil yells for Wim back on the ship, and he comes across a skeleton in tattered rags and cobwebs. It's a human skeleton, and he backs into another humanoid skeleton. I'm not sure there's actually human.
Looked like the forehead, maybe. Like it almost looked like a Twi'lek, like male or something like that, with the brow.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But who knows? Who knows?
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love Twi'leks. Cool. Yeah, and that skeleton is stabbed in the bulkhead with a sword. Wim excitedly comes up behind and points, and he whispers, "I think they died in a duel," which is so funny. Excitedly, he runs to show him the dusty captain's room with even more skeletons. Wim jumps onto a bed while Neil is just absolutely disgusted. And that's kind of a character quirk that Neil, I think he's a bit of a germaphobe. We kind of picked that up in episode 1 with him in the bubble bath and stuff like that.
Yeah. He reminds me of Tantor from the Tarzan movie, the animated Tarzan a little bit.
Yep. Phil Collins. Good stuff there. I gotta admit though, Mac, I would have loved this as a kid. Like if I were in Wim's situation, I would be feeling probably exactly like him, or maybe like Neil. I don't know if I'd be anxious, but it makes me feel nostalgic for childhood watching this show, and I think that's fun. It's not like nostalgia. It's not like Star Wars nostalgia. It's just nostalgia. In a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I absolutely know what you're saying. And like I think Star Wars, because of the nostalgia it has, that so many people have for Star Wars, it's such a good vehicle for nostalgia of other kinds too. Yeah. Because this is just like general 80s nostalgia. And like I know like even for people who didn't grow up in the 80s, like I didn't grow up in the 80s. I was, not born. It was 90s.
We're 90s kids.
Yeah. And then, but like, all the movies my parents liked to watch and stuff were 80s movies. So that was like the movies I was watching as a kid. So these touchstones still kind of resonate in that way.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think this is the perfect vehicle for those kind of feelings. Like Star Wars already has that association. Let's just see how far we can take it, honestly.
I love it. It's just something that makes you feel good when watching the show, and that's a huge compliment to the show because I think that means more and more people are going to watch it, and I hope a lot of people are watching this show.
Yeah,
because I think it's really, really good. Wim puts on a pirate hat on himself and then on Neil as well, and Neil asks if he wants to go home, and Wim throws him a skeleton head while Neil says his family is going to be worried for him. And he mentions mom and dad, the twins, Jorko and Jobo. And the way he says, little baby Tulo, like, it got me every time I watched that scene.
Like that's also how I feel about little baby Tulo, though.
Exactly. We love little baby Tulo on Children of the Watch. Really, really cool. Wim stops him and reminds him that they are in a starship now. Like, hey, look around yourself. Like, stop thinking about home. We're on an adventure.
We've been presented with this amazing opportunity. Like, it has fallen in our laps. Let's be present a little bit.
Right. So they can go anywhere they want in the whole wide galaxy, and Wim blows dust off a star compass. Neil isn't vibing with it, though, and he's ready to get to the starport. And this, of course, excites Wim because he didn't know they were going to a starport. So the ship exits hyperspace and heads into a murky asteroid belt. All sorts of ships, including Captain Silva's old ship, are docked at the starport hut. HUD?
Yeah,
Hut?
hub.
Hub. That's what I meant. I put hut in my notes.
I'm sure this is exciting podcasting to listen to.
Into the biggest asteroid. I only noticed one familiar ship as they glide into the dock, and it's basically like an alternate version of the Tantive 4, but it's got the Falcon type cockpit on the front.
Yeah, it's the Tantive 5.
Nice.
I just took the air out of the very nice and serious thing you were going to say.
I had nothing nice or serious to say. It's just like I've seen that design before. I haven't really seen the other designs before. I think I might have spotted a Razor Crest, but it was really hard to make out. Like that general shape is present, but it might not be a Razor Crest. But if it is...
That could be cool. Could be exciting.
That could be exciting. SM-33 wistfully announced their arrival to Port Borgo. And you know what they say about Borgo, right, Mac?
Oh, well, of course. I mean, everybody knows what they say about Borgo.
Yeah.
You'll rest well in a soft bed or a shallow grave.
Everyone's always said that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've been hearing that since I was a wee lad.
Little baby too low. Yeah, so this is supposed to be like Tortuga, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There in this episode in particular, there are a lot of beats that are very Pirates of the Caribbean-y.
Yeah.
Even just like finding all the skeletons around and stuff is kind of similar. Yeah, this definitely feels like Tortuga. It feels like this. This is no man's land. It's a lawless, orderless hub where, any pirate can go. Like, seems like, you can always get what you need, and like it's got everything that a pirate could want, but there's this inherent danger around every corner too. So it's like, if you're not tough enough to survive Borgo could easily get the best of you.
It looks awesome. Like it looks like a lot of fun, and I kind of wish they would add something like this to Galaxy's Edge, like a pirate port or something. I don't know. It looks really, really cool. But a stubby little space dinghy approaches the hatch to the ship, attaching itself, and the kids find a tiny, scuffy-looking alien on the other side.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, I have many obsessions in Star Wars, Mac. I've got Toro Calican right here in the background on YouTube. He's always watching us. Blue helmet, white stripe Mandalorian on the left side.
Yep.
And now we've got this guy.
The wee ferryman.
Little wee ferryman. I love this guy. I'm pretty sure it's Teak from Battle for Endor. It's at least the same species, but if it's Teak, he's been taking Ozempic. He looks a little different. He looks a little gaunt, a little rough, but I love this guy. He's amazing. I love the way he moves. Like when he goes back to the little seat, he's just like, I need a Jedi of this.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that. That's such a good idea. He reminds me of Babu Frick in some ways. I think I like this guy better. I think
the way he just kind of moves, it's like out of control.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like he should be a sentient I don't know. He's halfway between.
He's like borderline sentient.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I love it. He's a great little. I imagine it like a trained monkey in a pirate thing, right? So we named the monkey Jack. Because they interact, they have a personality and stuff, but it's like, and then they can have tasks, they can do things and follow commands, but it's not like they're a conscious being necessarily. I don't know. Since
we don't know if it's Teak or not, let's call him Ozzy for Ozempic. But I love this guy. SM-33 tells them to go ahead to the port while he will stay back for the repairs. Hesitantly, they get on board. They undock and head towards the spaceport. And Borgo, like we said, is absolutely awesome. It looks great.
Yeah.
They get out and they get more apprehensive as they take it all in. And if you look above while they're kind of looking around everything, if you look above, there's just there's one guy getting absolutely jumped by a few other guys on a platform. Like, just nobody's helping this guy. They're walking past him. He's having a really rough day.
Seems like Borgo selected a shallow grave for that individual instead of the soft bed.
Yeah, there's a guy puking his guts up. It's just a great place. Family friendly. You want to take your family here on vacation.
Wholesome entertainment. It's a wholesome environment.
That's right.
You know, they don't make places like that anymore. I love all the characters roaming about. It feels so lively. There's just this energy and all these grizzled looking spacers and pirates, and it's a great set.
It's awesome. Ozzy, or Teak, jumps on Fern's shoulder, and I wish he would jump on mine. I want him to live in my Christmas tree. That would be a dream come true. But he wants payment. And Wim takes out his lunch money and places a few in Teak's hand, and Teak is shocked. Or Ozzy is shocked. Brother just got paid.
Like, he's looking at the bag.
He looks down and looks up, and he's like, "Whoa!"
It's like, I'm going to Canto Bight immediately.
Yeah, the first thing he does is he's going to go spend that thing, and I'm pretty sure he's going to the dancing club.
With the red lights inside and all
they're
that.
Just dancing. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
Just a nice dance club.
Because, Pirate Islands are notorious for their wholesome theaters, their cultural institutions.
Well-known dances pirates do.
I'm sure it's akin to ballet.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could call it dancing. So
we need to move on.
Ozzy runs off like he is pumped. And then Wim bends down to hide the rest of the credits in his sock, and Fern asks what he's doing. Wim refers them to as the credits as dataries. He says dataries.
It's it's a weird word.
It's actually the same word that Qui-Gon used to refer to credits in The Phantom Menace. He kind of does it with an accent, but it's the same word. And so it's like what the Galactic Standard credit was called during the Republic era. Yeah. And so that's interesting. That's another clue, I think. And we'll come back to the money. We're gonna have a weird discussion about money and why these pirates are so enamored with it, with this particular kind of money. But then we see the guy just puking his guts out. And they decide to find a normal place to ask for directions. And KB points out the aliens, and basically because it's species they've never seen before. And so they're doing that thing that's kind of embarrassing. They're like, "Oh, look, I've never seen that before." And Neil even says out loud, "They're so weird looking."
Yeah.
And I don't think they mean anything by it, but they're just being kids of they've never experienced this before. And Fern's like, "What are you? Shut up! Stop talking."
Fern seems like a little more worldly. She's got got a little more street knowledge, if you will.
Yeah. So they pass by the bazaar where the Ishitib pirate from the opening scene of the first episode is getting a cybernetic eye, kind of cluing us in that the same crew from that is here right now.
And it just happened. That cold open before this moment, that I was thinking that could have been 10 years before. None of these kids could have even been born. Who knows? But yeah, that clues us in that the cold open of episode 1 happened, days at the most before this moment.
Yeah. So Wim asked to stop in. Like we said, let's call it a dance club for our family-friendly audience. Mm-hmm. And this is where Teak went to go spend his money. Fern says that they need to keep walking, but one of the girls enticing people to come in notices the kids with a look of concern on her face. When Fern turns around, the others are already gone. Elsewhere, we see Fuzzball from Captain EO in a cage. Mac can you just quickly tell the listening audience, what is Captain EO? What is that referring to?
Yeah, we had a larger, longer explanation of this a couple episodes back. So if you want more info, don't look that up. Just like Google it instead. That'll be a much faster way to get your information. Basically, Captain EO is a George Lucas kind of involved film that was like a permanent attraction in Disney's Epcot, and Captain EO was starring Michael Jackson as well. It had some similar like themes and setting and stuff like that to Star Wars, but different stylings. But yeah, Fuzzball is a character in that, and he is now making the leap to a galaxy far, far away.
There we go. KB approaches and looks at it with her bare eyes. She steps past the patrons and comes across a salesman selling a droid, and this is actually Hugo Bibble, friend of the podcast. I love what he's doing here. I love the line, "Are you suffering from assassination frustration?"
Mm-hmm. I have commonly been frustrated. I've had assassination frustration. I can't even get that out my mouth. But
we're just kidding, FBI.
Mm-hmm. And this is all for legal purposes a joke.
Yeah, it's just a funny line as he's demonstrating the small flying attack droid. KB backs up and into Fern as it kind of gets in her face a little bit. The door girl from earlier, I think it's a Theline, runs up to them and pulls them away. And she warns them about being on Borgo. She tries to get them to a transport, but Fern says that they have one. They just need directions. And the woman ends up asking, okay, so where is home? And Fern tells her. And you see this kind of like shocked look on her face of like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Neil and Wim stop at a food counter getting helping of ramen with some nice bug guts. Mm-hmm. Love ramen with some bug guts. Who doesn't?
I mean, it's my my favorite topping for ramen, bug guts.
Who doesn't love that?
When I was in Japan, it was really fresh. So
it's 2 credits, okay? But then he says a Star Wars cuss word that I don't think I've actually heard on screen before. I've read it several times, but I've never heard or seen it on screen. I don't think. He says, "What do you think this is? A criffing charity?"
It's a good one. It's got it's got everything you want in an expletive. It's got that good, nice crisp sounding, like sound at the beginning, and then you've got the big soft, like you can really savor that sound in the middle there, and you can tie it all up, put a nice bow on it with the ng.
Yeah.
So
I use it all the time driving. What are you criffing doing?
Yeah.
All the time. Wim pays him his credit, and the alien, the horse alien with like 6 eyes, is shocked by it. And then he realizes he can get more, so he starts asking for more. Another alien at the counter warns him that they're just trying to cheat them, and then takes the credit from the cook. And then he says, "Where did you two find an Old Republic credit in mint condition?" And old is capitalized here. I think that's important for this conversation we're about to have. I don't want to bore you, but this does beg a few questions. First one, is it Old Republic? Like, as in, like, Knights of the Old Republic, like pre-Darth Bane Old Republic. Let's say that.
Yeah, so basically, listeners, if you're kind of jumping in now, this is still kind of a gray area and it's hazy, but like basically best we can tell, there's 3 kind of distinct eras of Republic. There's the Old Republic with a capital O, which is like ancient times. You're talking millennia ago, like Knights of the Old Republic video game, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And then you've got the Republic, which can also be called the Old Republic, meaning the past one,
right?
Which is what we see in the prequels. It's also
like the
containing
Clone Wars, yeah,
but that also contains the High Republic era.
It's so confusing.
So that's the High Republic era is a specific part of the lowercase Old Republic.
This is so nerdy. But
yeah, So, all that, and then you have the New Republic, of course, which is what we see in the sequel trilogy.
They really need some new names.
Like we gotta work something out there. I don't know. I wish the High Republic could also just extend to
thing.
the prequel era. Like you've got the Old Republic, the High Republic, and the New Republic. I think that would work pretty easy. But I don't know why you have to distinguish the High Republic from the prequel era.
The Falling Republic. Yeah.
But it's very criffing confusing.
It is. Well, like it begs the question of like what they actually mean, like what the showrunners mean by Old Republic, because we're not sure. So all that to say, we don't know if this is like 4,000 years old or 50 years old.
It could be either.
But it's pre-Empire. I think we can establish it's pre-Empire.
Yep. Yeah, that's super safe to say. Because that we were shown very explicitly in episode 1 a New Republic credit.
Yes,
it's got the Rebel Starbird on it.
Yes.
It's kind of square, shaped.
Small,
and then the ones the kids have are very different, very distinct.
I'm pretty sure Brutus even smells it.
Yeah.
So there might be something to that, because this is the next question I was going to ask. Is there something about the gold in the credit, or is it just because how old it is, or maybe these credits were banned by the Empire and like they're not supposed to be in circulation, and that's what makes them like it's just a credit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So I'm going to start with
this is where it gets really nerdy.
This is what the people are here for.
This is what they want.
In situations like this, I think sometimes it's helpful to take a step back from the Star Wars universe and think about what it means for the tropes for the storytelling in the show.
Okay.
In this case, I think it's basically playing the part of like lost Spanish gold, like the gold of Cortez or something like that. Meaning it's what this big treasure like of At-Attin is made up of, I think. Or at least part of it. It's indicative of that treasure. So I think more like we will have to have the conversation next about like the in-universe value, like the economics of it, basically. But I think for the story, it's just like representing
treasure.
It's just treasure. It's the idea of this mythological treasure that may or may be out there, or may not be out there. But this is the first glimpse anyone's actually seeing of like it being a real thing,
I wish then there was like maybe like a certain symbol on it that kind of indicates like, oh, this is At-Attin. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like kind of
there is a distinct symbol on it, I thought.
I don't know if it's a Republic like symbol. You know what I mean?
Right,
like I don't know if it's just the Republic or like specific to At-Attin, because I was kind of thinking like Pirates of the Caribbean in the first one, the medallion has a very specific look to it, right? Like it's going to be different than any other currency that's out there, giving you that indication of, okay, there's something special about this. But I think you're right. I think it just kind of plays into the trope, and that's really all we should be concerned about for right now.
But
we're Star Wars fans.
Yeah. So speaking of the economics of it, I think there's a couple ways it could go. It could be just that like it is a solid piece of a material that like is now scarce because the Republic used to use it for credits, right? So like it is worth more than its tender value, So like if it was a $1, it's like a $1 bill that's worth $1 million, right? Because it's printed on diamonds, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it could be like they're at like the metal has something because it's old and rare now and scarce. It could also be that like they have more value as artifacts than currency. Like I don't think this currency can appreciate in the way that like global currencies have exchange rates and stuff. I don't think that's happening here.
So do you think there's like a HoloNet commercial that comes on like late at night? Maybe like an older kind of wizened HoloNet actor kind of showing like, hey, you should invest in these At-Attin coins
It's an investment that's a sure thing. It's absolutely, you'll see a return. It's one of the safest investments you can make.
CO Babel is doing that one.
So
I love it.
I that needs to be created, I think. So who knows? Who knows what the economics of it are? But that's a couple possibilities.
Okay. I think we should get back to the episode.
let's get back to the breakdown.
Neil blurts out it was lunch money. Then Vane, the Nikto alien from Mando season 3, appears behind them asking where they're from. Neil says At-Attin, just kind of like, we're from At-Attin. Yeah. And Vane reacts to that. He kind of looks at the other crusty-looking alien, and everyone starts laughing as if it were a joke. Yeah. And then Vane says he wants a better look at the credit, thinking it might be fake, but the crusty alien doesn't like that idea. They want to see if Wim has more, and after Neil asks him to do something, he upends the bug gut ramen onto the pan, and a fire ignites, allowing them a chance to run. Meanwhile, the Theline is trying to help them, Fern and KB, and Fern thinks that they're trying to kidnap them. And honestly, like, I also kind of had the same thought of like, can you trust this person? Like, I don't know if like she was genuine or not. I think she was trying to like, hey, don't get trapped in the life I got trapped in. Yeah, to get you out of here.
She seemed to like genuinely be looking out for the interests of like being like, oh, there's kids here. There doesn't need to be kids here. Do they know what happens here? Like,
we dance a lot. The Theline says that they need a better story than At-Attin. And she says, really? You're a couple of Linderlings from the lost planet of eternal treasure? And the girls look at each other confused. Lost planet, eternal treasure. So this is kind of our first indication as an audience that no, the wider galaxy has heard of At-Attin before, but none of them think it's real. It's like El Dorado. Like if someone were to like show up at your place of work and say, we're both from El Dorado, you'd be like, okay.
Hey,
what does that mean?
We just got in from Atlantis, actually.
Exactly.
We're just like, what?
Okay.
Yeah. I love that. So do you think that's a very specific wording, and it's not the only time we hear that specific wording, I don't think.
Eternal treasure?
Eternal treasure. That's a very particular phrase to me. Like, eternal is not necessarily something that, like, I don't know, like wealth can be infinite maybe, but not like eternal's a weird descriptor.
So yeah, I think it would be what that would indicate is like pirates hear that and they think it's endless wealth. There's endless treasure. There's nothing like that can stop you from getting as rich as possible. It's like Treasure Planet. Like it's just this idea of like there's gold everywhere. It's like the storeroom in Aladdin where they find the genie. It's like that, but the whole planet. Yep. I don't think it's like that. I think it is more like Treasure Planet in the idea of like there's something probably on At-Attin that is more valuable than gold.
Absolutely. That's to me, that's what that speaks to. It speaks to like a power of some sort maybe, or like a key to somewhere, or it could be something like, oh, here's the hyperspace route to Peridia, or whatever it is. There's all kinds of things it could be.
Now that we're on the subject, let's go ahead and because I think this will relate to what the Arabesh writing was in the Jedi story. So let's go ahead and pause and read the translated version from Star Wars Explained that Alex and Molly did. These are all the little paragraphs under the stories, and so let's keep the idea of eternal treasure in mind as we go through this, because I think this is a kind of a good segue into that. So I'm going to start at the beginning, and here it is. The Cave of Shadow was dark and ominous, but Lena was not afraid. She ignited her lightsaber, its blue glow lighting up the darkness, ready for what lay ahead. Suddenly the Sith appeared before her in dark robes and a red lightsaber. You should not have come here, he hissed, his voice echoing through the cave. Druin, I think. Druin packed his bag with everything. So I think there's kind of like a gap in the story there. Druin packed his bag with everything he might need and set off on his adventure. The Hadaka forest was beautiful, with tall trees and bright, colorful flowers. Druin felt the force flowing through everything around him. First, Druin came across the ruined hut of a woodchopper. There it is. The place had been abandoned, the axe left behind, cleft into the stump of an old tree. The vines of the forest had grown back and overwhelmed everything. I wonder if we're going to end up going there.
I think maybe possibly.
Yeah. Next, Druin came across the paddock of a herder who was long gone, run off into the forest or eaten by the beast, but from their old food grew a strange, beautiful flower. Finally, Druin felt a strong presence in the forest. He knew he was getting close to the fearsome beast. He took out his lightsaber and held it ready as the beast lunged out of the forest and loomed over him. And then I think there's another gap here. The knights decided to build a temple fortress using the force. They lifted and shaped the rocks around them, creating the soaring towers of their new home. The entire fortress could lower into the ground. That's where he gets that information, hiding it from sight during times of danger. With their fortress complete, the Jedi Knights found peace and solace. They meditated together, their connection to the Force and each other growing stronger. They were a beacon of light in the darkness, and when the galaxy called for heroes, the Valiant Order did not hesitate. Their fortress rose back up to the surface, and they stood ready to fight for justice and peace. So, with that story in mind, do you think maybe the eternal treasure on At-Attin might be a hidden Jedi temple like Wim was originally looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very particular thing to keep bringing up in that first episode, right? And then we're led to believe like, oh no, he was mistaken. But then what if we actually do get back to At-Attin and he finds the Jedi temple he's been saying has been there the whole time? I think that would thematically work really well. It also makes sense that like, this is in the Mandoverse. It's connected to Ahsoka.
Yes.
We know that the Lothal Temple was a way into the world between worlds.
Yep.
A doorway. So if there's a Jedi Temple of the same kind as Lothal, like one that can rise and fall and has this like innate mystical quality, the Eternal Treasure could be access to the world between worlds.
That's really good. I like that. You're totally right. Okay, so that's something maybe we need to keep our eye on. That could be the Eternal Treasure. That's really good. Let's get back to the breakdown. Now my mind's going to go in all sorts of places. Thank you.
Stay on target. Stay on target.
The boys are running from a mob yelling for help, and they trip over, and Fern runs in front of them and fires a blaster into the air. They begin questioning if they're really from At-Attin, and again, it's mentioned it's a myth. Then Vane snatches the blaster from Fern. But then from behind, we hear SM-33 announce, "Do not touch my captain." And then he kind of rises up and he limps towards them on his peg leg. Yeah. So awesome. I love it. Yeah. And then he ends up punching Vane and then the horse fry cook and pummels the crusty alien with his punchers.
Goes to work on that guy like he's a speed bag. I do not want to get into a scrape with SM-33.
No. Because even the Warthog alien fires blasters on him, and SM-33 extends shields from his arms and blocks him off.
Yeah.
It's so cool. He even makes that Warthog squeal. I kind of felt bad for the Warthog, to be honest with you. I was like, oh. After
not too bad.
I know. After tossing the Warthog, the fuzzballs are free from their cages, and SM-33 suggests that they get back to their ship. They burst through the bazaar, ruining a tattoo. I thought that was a fun little bit there. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I loved the droid. It's the same kind of droid that's in like the Jawa's Sandcrawler, right? Or no, it's Jabba's Palace torturing other droids.
Yeah.
I was like, I get those dingy droid-filled environments confused all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's the same type as that droid, but then he's got like all the markings and stuff, like he's been tattooed or like painted up.
He has tattoos himself.
Yeah, he's got like full body coverage.
It's awesome.
It's very fun.
Gunther played by Jamil White, watches as they run past and they get back to our man Ozzy or Teak. Fern questions SM-33 why they came to a pirate port, and SM-33 says, because we're also pirates.
We're not going to go to a legitimate port. Are you crazy? Do you know what they do to pirates there?
I love that they start debating on if kids can be pirates. I love that. And then a blaster shock hits SM-33 and knocks him down to the ground, kind of taking out his power. Stomping towards them is Brutus and his crew. The rat jumps out of SM-33 and into Neil's hands. And Brutus wants to know how they even got there past their turbo lasers, all that. And Gunther promises to get the truth out of them. But Fern says that if they have got a question, just go ahead and ask them right here. And Brutus stops. And so because of the way she's kind of talking to him, he wants them in the brig. And Wim has no idea what a brig is. He's never even heard that word before, so he's kind of confused. And then we see them trapped in the brig with a key hanging on the peg. I think this was supposed to be super reminiscent of Pirates of the Caribbean here, right?
Yeah, of course. And I was even thinking, I hope it doesn't work so that they're intentionally subverting the expectations of we're watching it thinking, oh, they're gonna do the Pirates of the Caribbean thing. That's how they'll get out, and then it doesn't. I like that subversion of it.
I do too.
But I agree with you. It's an intentional homage. I don't think it's the only one that has been or we will see.
No, yeah, I think there's going to be more for sure. So they see the key hanging on a peg, right? Neil has an all-time great line here. He says, "You probably shouldn't lay on there. The dirt is really dirty."
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks for looking out for us. I almost kind of expected a boar gullet to be somewhere in there.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
The brig is very similar to Saul Guerrera's prison.
So they start talking about how to get out step by step, and Neil thinks that they can use the rat to get to the key, and it's a really great scene. I love the rat, again, as part of the crew, almost kind of understanding them, not really understanding them. He almost gets it before getting confused and just running off.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's great.
I think he's going to end up finding SM-33 and continue on with
I think he'll
later.
just live in his eye the whole time.
Sure.
He's the parrot on his shoulder, but it's a rat in his eye.
Yeah. KB mentions how everyone thinks that At-Attin is just some sort of make-believe myth that holds some sort of eternal treasure. Wim thinks that is so dumb. Who would believe that? And then Fern points out that Wim thought they were in a Jedi temple to begin with. All this is important that they're saying it out loud because in the shadows, Jude Law's character, Jod Na Nawood, is hearing this and probably constructing the story to tell them what he is and what he's after because they've already said it out loud, right? Kind of just giving them that confirmation bias, what they want to hear. So he starts reaching for his hidden credits, but Fern warns him not to. They just steal it. And then enters Jod. He says, now, and chains rattle as a hooded figure emerges from the shadows. He offers to help them back to the ship and to their planet as long as they take him too. And they ask how they can get out, and Jod says the key. But Fern points out that they can't reach it. And he says, the distance between us and the key is an illusion. And then he reaches up with one hand and the key floats past them and the bars as the Force theme plays. Really nice touch there with the music. Yeah. And Wim whispers, "You're a Jedi." Jod takes the key and shushes them, and then he dramatically takes off his hood to reveal Jude Law. And he asks, "Can you keep a secret?" And then we cut to black. Yeah. And it's such a great little cliffhanger, making me want absolutely more of this show.
I think this show is going to continue to just end an episode and then pick right back up where it left off the next episode. I think that's, at least in arcs, maybe. There may be a couple gaps here and there later on, but it seems like they're really trying to keep this momentum just rolling forward. I love it. Love how they ended the last one. Loved how they ended this one. All right. So I think we should maybe give a couple closing thoughts on the episode because we're going to have to talk about Jod would. We're going to talk about Jude Law.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a discussion.
We're going to camp out there for sure. I'll start with just saying I love this episode. I think on rewatch, I think I like this one more than the first one, just because like it's like again, like I said at the top of the episode, I thought the first one was great, and it does a great job letting you know who all these characters are, setting the foundation, setting the table for the story, and then now the story's starting. And I think that's what I love about it. Is just it's us, right? Like me and you finding ourselves in a Star Wars world that we always dreamed of being a part of, but it's a dangerous world, right? Like being in Star Wars is dangerous. And I think that's what's so fun about this episode. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo everything you said. Perfect way to just really get into the meat of the adventure. It also did a really important thing, which was just, it sold me on the idea that we can do an entire show about pirates, like a live action Star Wars show centering around pirates, because I was so interested in the world building they did with the port and with all the characters we've been meeting. And with, SM-33 and the, his mythos, and I'm just so excited to see, where we go from here. Fantastic episode.
It's so good.
With all of that said.
Let's talk about Jod. Let's talk about it. Okay, so he's clearly Captain Silvo.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that's... I would be super surprised if that ended up being all red herring, right? That seems like a lot of a buildup. I think it's clear that he's been marooned by his crew, who's still here. This is just the first place they made port. And so they were like, throw him in the brig here.
Why not kill him?
It's interesting. Because that's a big question. He either knows something, kind of like Jack Sparrow, where... he knows how to use the compass and find the islands and stuff like that. So maybe he knows, he might have kind of a clue to where At-Attin is, or how to navigate that, or something like that. However, he could also just he knows where the bodies are buried kind of deal.
They could use him.
Yeah, who knows? But it's interesting that he's still alive, for sure.
So, okay, probably Captain Silvo. We kind of guess why he might still be alive. Can he actually use the Force? Is this an illusion? Like he kind of said the word illusion. Is it kind of like that character from Obi-Wan Kenobi? Or I think that he actually can use the Force. I'm getting the vibe that he actually can use the Force.
Yeah, especially with like it happening and the episode ending, and there was no other contraptions or anything like that we see. Like the other Jedi you were talking about, he's got like the stuff on his hands that pull things. The only possibility is he's got some kind of miniaturized, localized tractor beam technology.
And
seems far-fetched, right? So I'm with you. I think
Max
he can really
Vibroblade says he can use the Force.
Yeah, I think he can use the Force.
Okay.
We've got Max Vibroblade and Chekhov's emergency hole demolition button.
That's right. So, okay, let me ask you this then. We kind of talked about this in our lead up to the show. Do you think that he was potentially a Padawan maybe during the Clone Wars? Order 66 happens. He gets marooned because of Order 66, joins a pirate crew, becomes a pirate, leaves the Jedi life behind, but he's got some minimal training in the Force, was a former Jedi. Or I think a more interesting story, in my opinion, is this is just someone who grew up, can use the Force, but was never trained to do it, and he became a pirate instead of a Jedi.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I think the least likely scenario is that he was a Padawan, survived Order 66, and then went rogue. Like, that just seems... We've not seen other characters do that. I think that would be a very interesting take, though. I'm not going to rule it out of possibility either.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying with him, just like, we've never really seen that, what just developing Force abilities and that side of things without any kind of ideology or like spirituality associated with that. Like, we've never seen how that goes, like what that does to a person.
Yeah, not even
I think
Sith,
that's
like,
right.
It's just whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah. There is one other possibility. I think of Asajj Ventress in the Clone Wars.
Okay.
Where she's fully dark side, like in line to become a Sith. And then, she's apprenticing under Dooku, but Dooku kind of double crosses her, casts her aside, and then she's just left to fend for herself, find her own way in the galaxy, right? So she spends a lot of time just being a bounty hunter. She's not using her Force abilities a lot to keep covert, but she's still using all of her training and everything like that to make her way through the world. This could be a similar situation where he maybe was an apprentice to somebody or something somewhere. It went south. He's on his own now, and he goes this way to just make his living. I think that's an interesting story too.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities about like this character. Jude Law said that episode 7, you're going to learn a lot more about his character. So I think we're going to be like, I know, held in the dark for a while about him, but I think that makes it a little more fun as we get little clues and hints before the last or second to last episode premieres. So I'm incredibly excited to find out more about him. I think he's a very interesting character that is unique in the sense of like, imagine Hondo Anaka with the Force, which is like, what could he do with that? So yeah, like I don't know. I'm really excited to see where his character goes from here. And then I think episode 3 is going to be even better because like now you've got the Jod with the kids. What's that dynamic going to look like? And I'm really excited to see what happens in episode 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's probably going to, hear that they've got associations with At-Attin and stuff. And he's going to be like, okay, how can I leverage this interaction to my advantage?
And I imagine like because they'll probably let him know like we've got no way of getting back, then they've got to find like a legendary map maybe or something to At-Attin, and that's what their journey is. Like, I'm going to help you find this thing to get home. Yeah. And that's what the kind of adventure is like them trying to find something that they already came from, but to the rest of the galaxy it's like this big mythological thing. Right.
Yeah. Because like, when they were there, they had the advantage that they were already there. But now that they're not there, they're in the same boat as the rest of the galaxy with not being able to get back. I'd love to meet some kind of crazy cartographer character.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Who's maybe like not like the Santekas where they're the official legitimate hyperspace prospectors and stuff, but kind of a rogue cartographer who's got his own ways of finding, how to navigate around the galaxy, something like that.
That'd be sick. That'd be awesome. So. There's just so much potential for this, and I think what makes it so exciting is I'm having a hard time kind of guessing what's going to happen next. Yeah. And that's a really good place to be, especially with, like for you and me who do this all the time and we analyze it in a way that like we kind of predict a lot of times what's happening. The fact that I'm having trouble with it, I think is a really good indicator of like they've done a really good job of not showing their cards. Yeah. And keeping you invested in these like little small expanding stories that are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they don't start off big, but I think by the end of the show, we're going to be like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Like this got big fast and it started off real small on At-Attin. So I'm so excited to see where we go with this. So I think that about does it, but now it's up to the listener to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our next episode is going to be our Skelephone Hotline episode, the first for in-season Children of the Watch time. We definitely want to hear your thoughts, your theories, everything you felt, everything you fear. We want to know all of it. Yeah, so please call in at 205-259-6675. That episode will be coming out Saturday. Well, sometime, probably over the weekend.
Probably. Yes, probably. Let's say over the weekend.
Yeah.
That's a safe bet.
Yep. These breakdown episodes will always drop the day after the episode, but for voicemails, we'll say the weekend.
Yeah, we want you to be able to call in, think about it. But yeah, maybe the cutoff being, let's say, Thursday night.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That might be a good cutoff in terms of if you want to get your call in. But don't forget, keep it under 3 minutes. If you mess up, hang up, try again. We'll use your best one. We've already got a few voicemails in already.
Yep.
So we would love to hear from you, and you could potentially make it on our show or our bonus voicemail hotline episode on our Patreon, patreon.com/The Mandalorian Watch. You can get access to those episodes and so many more bonus episodes for just $2 a month, and our really active Discord, especially in season.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun over there. And then we're also going to be guests on our friends, the Resistance Broadcast, the Galactic Goonies, on their YouTube show next Wednesday night at 8:30. So not this Wednesday, but the next one, talking about episode 3 when that comes out. So you'll have our breakdown, then we'll be on their show, and then we'll be on our voicemails. So it's going to be a busy week for us, but we're excited to do it. Especially when a Star Wars show like this is on. It's so good. It's so much fun. And we hope that we just have a blast the rest of these episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to, do the rest of Skeleton Crew with you, Alex, and with the listeners. Thank you so much for listening. A couple ways you can support us. Patreon, like Alex mentioned. You can also just leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. That goes a long way with getting us up in the ratings and getting other eyes on our show and everything like that. Head over to YouTube, leave a comment, leave a like over there. Even if you listen to the audio form of the podcast, you can still go get in on the discussion and the comments and stuff. If there's anything you like, that's a very direct way to reach us. Yes. With the volume we've got over there. It's very, very, very manageable. So we see a lot of those. But yeah, so even if you listen to the podcast, go to the YouTube, leave a comment if you want, like it, all that kind of stuff.
You can see us.
Yeah. Hello.
I'm doing a motion right now.
I'm going to wave directly to you, the listener, because you're looking. If you are looking, you might just be listening and you want the podcast to end. That's Toro Calican in Alex's background there. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll be back over the weekend with a voicemail episode. Until then, keep the watch.